right, welcome back to another episode, guys. This week we're going to be talking about my S13. So this car was made in 1993 and still exists today. It started out as an ADGP car way back in the day. So we're going to go through back from when it first hit the track all those years ago, all the way through to current times, sitting in my shed, broken. So kick back, relax. This is going to be a pretty informal little chat about what is my S13. All right, so in my hands here, I have the odometer for the car. By all accounts, at the start, it had 30,000 kilometers on it when it first went on track. So this is back in 2006. When removed, this odometer now has over 100,000 kilometers on it. Kind of ridiculous to think that, 70,000 kilometers of this car's life was sideways. That's pretty ridiculous. So this car started out as a factory black 5-speed SR. So the earlier shots I have of it are basically with no livery. So this is back in 2006 when it started, and its first track was actually Calder Park, which is kind of nuts to think that we still drift there today. And all the way back then, it was still the same car. So underneath here far enough, if we look, you can actually see all the different colors. So as we go through today, you'll see every different variation of this car along the way. So it's been black, blue, red, yellow, white. So we'll go through, we'll actually step you all the way through it. So early days in ADGP with the Phillips livery. Think back to some of the coolest cars in drifting pretty much ever. So you've got Bo Yates in his 86, you've got DeJager, you've got Drift Squid, Rob White, Kuda El Hooley, the list goes on of the coolest drivers you can ever think of. And this car was in there. So how awesome is that this car actually existed back then and it's still here today. So after the Phillips livery, it then went on to be part of Team Federal. So a 4-car team, all SR powered, all S chassis. And once again, just killing the game in ADGP with the Federal team. After the Federal team, it became the Kumo car, which is personally my favorite livery that I've ever seen on a car, pretty much ever. I don't know why. I love how this car looked in the Kumo colors. Everyone knows it as the Kumo car, and even today, I still rep Kumo tires. I personally think they're great, but the red livery was just chef's kiss from back in the day. Still SR powered, and that'll be a recurring theme the whole way along this video that it was SR powered, big hint on the was. So we go through after the Federal. After that, we go on to the Kumo. After the Kumo, it became the Dunlop car. So this is when I first got to see the car with my own eyes in the flesh. So I saw this car at Symmons Plains in the torrential rain for a DCA round. So this car had actually been inactive for a few years. The old owner didn't really want to use it anymore. I think he'd kind of got over it, or for personal reasons decided to step away from it. But Shane Van Gisbergen was coming down, and it was just kind of a good event to get it back out at. That's the first event I actually saw this car with my own eyes competing. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen actually beat this car, so I do apologise to everyone else who's a Shane Van Gisbergen fan. From that day on, I actually really liked him. I got to meet him afterwards, pretty cool. But this car was driving in inches of rain. First time I ever saw it, and I was a spectator. I must have been maybe 17 or so. I had an R32 that I owned, and I thought I was the sickest dude ever, but I didn't get invited to the event, so I couldn't drive it. So this car did eventually get beaten in the rain. There was, when I first bought it, a smashed, if you look in the Adam LZ video, the rear bar was actually still broken when I bought the car. I left that on there for a while. Eventually I did fix it and get a new rear bar, but that was broken by Shane Van Gisbergen, and I kept that there for ages because I just kind of liked it. After that event where it was in the torrential rain, it didn't actually really get used all that much at all. So it was used in a couple of Motorcanas. I had the old owner on Facebook and stuff, and I'd see or hear that the car went out and got used, and really just kind of sat in a shed. It was one of those things where didn't really hear about it. I had my own drift program with an R32 going on, or program, if you will. So it just popped up on Facebook one day for sale. So it was just one of those cars that I had to have it immediately. So I didn't negotiate, I didn't anything. I wasn't even in the state. I was living in Victoria here. I saw the car for sale, messaged the owner immediately and said, I'm sending someone down now to look at it. They looked at it and said, yep, it looks like a car. I found out later that they didn't really look at it all that much at all. And I just paid them asking price because I've seen this car for so many years. The owner was like, hey, if I don't sell it, I'll just part it out. And I was like, there's no chance of that happening. Immediately from day one of driving this car, I was so impressed. Like I instantly felt at home in this car. I have no idea why. Still feels the same now. It's like putting on an old shoe. I'm so comfortable in the car. I'm really hesitant to change the car. Like any of the suspension and stuff is still 10 to 15 years old, but it just works. And I don't want to ruin that magic of how the car feels. So I'm really hesitant to change it. So that leads us into the first driving of the car. All the Dunlop livery came off. A lot of Industries livery went on the car and I used it for 3 rounds of drifting Taz. So I was just flying in between and driving the car, just kept it in the state and instantly felt at home. I didn't necessarily do very good. I think I was like a 6th and an 8th and a DNF or something, but it leads to probably one of the coolest photos I've ever had in my drifting career. And it's not even in my car. So Craig, if you're watching, thanks for the lend of the car. I'm sorry I binned it. But it leads to the infamous double barrel photo where I went too hard into turn 1 using a car that I'd never driven before and just punted 2 water barrels as far as you can possibly imagine. So it did lead to a cool story, but unfortunately I think his record is a bit worse for wear. After that, so we did the 3 rounds and thought, you know what, this is getting a bit silly. We're just driving back and forth and flying and it's all a bit much. Why don't I send my R32 down and I'll bring the S13 back. So the last round I did, we popped the shim and I had that excellent photo. After then, the car actually came back to Victoria, after all those years in Tassie, it actually came back to where it all started, back in the southeast suburbs here. And we pulled the car apart, initially just did a refresh on the car, kept it how it was, and then kind of realized that with the rules over here, we can't actually use the car. So the cage when we got the car was a bolt-in Cusco cage, which isn't that legal. It has 0 certification. So the tunnel itself was a bit 90s spec. So that all got cut out. So it's got a brand new Lotta Industries tunnel in it, along with an 8-point roll cage that's all CAMS approved, logbooked. Honestly, I'm so glad that we did that straight off the bat because now I can take the car anywhere in Australia I dream of going to, and the car is always just going to be compliant. I'm not going to have to worry about scrutineers picking on things or anything like that. I know a lot of guys get really antsy and they're like, oh, I don't like it. Anywhere I go with this car, it's going to sail through within reason. There's a couple of times with the SR, it was leaking oil. Don't tell the scrutineers, but might have just covered the oil up. I did speak earlier about being in an Adam LZ video. So that was my first real event with the car, kind of for me on the mainland. So I was fortunate enough to know Luke Fink through DCA and through the years, and did actually get invited to LZ Fest or whatever it was called back in the day.
This one probably is one of my favorite liveries here.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really cool looking. Is it your car?
Joey's car.
Yeah. What's up?
So we drove all the way to Archie up there in Queensland to do 3 laps and catch fire 3 times. But we did feature in an LZ video, and it was kind of, you know, cutting our teeth with the new car and the new build, and regardless of how many laps we did, at least we were there. And that car was all right, but I was kind of fed up with how the car was as a whole. So it was still, you know, we might have just done the cage and the tunnel, but it was still a 5-speed and it was still junky SR. So we pulled all that out, refreshed the SR, hotted it up, gave it a heap of brand new parts, put the engine back in with the 5-speed, and we went to Pheasant Wood next. After then, that was the first time where we ditched the wrap, we ditched everything. This was going to be my own thing. It was going to be a brilliant year of doing the national series. So I was like, yep, we're going to take the world by storm. Went and got the car wrapped, freshened up the engine, freshened up as much as I possibly could. We went to Pheasant Wood for Rate Suri, because once again, new track, let's go. Let's go have a blinder of a weekend. We freighted the car up there on a freighter, and I'm kind of glad we did, because after 3 laps of no fires, no issues, we smashed 3rd gear. So it was 2nd gear pretty much all weekend, or 4th if I was feeling really gutsy, which, you know, I'm not gonna glorify myself, didn't happen very often. After then, it actually had a fuel injector problem. So then it had a misfire as well, and we did not do all that many laps, and then pretty much just limped the car on the car transporter and came home. Cleaned the injectors. I thought it was a great idea at the time to use C&G 2200cc injectors because they were dirt cheap. Turns out you buy once, cry once. So apparently taking the cheap route wasn't very good for me. So we had injector drummers pretty much the entire time I used them. After then, we put an RB box back in. So I actually stole an RB box off my partner. Went through and we did round 1 of high tech. So we went through, and this is our first kind of success with the car. Actually, to date, still our best success. So I actually got 2nd in my first ever round of high tech with the RB box. And then after then, we decided, you know what? The oil pressure's a bit low. We've got, you know, between 9 and 15 PSI oil pressure. That's not really, you know, it's probably not enough. Let's pull the engine out. Let's actually refresh it properly, and then we'll go through and we'll finish the season off, and it'll be brilliant. So we pulled the engine out, pulled it apart, saw that pretty much everything was knackered, decided to go and overbore it, get brand new pistons, all brand new bearings, new oil pump gears, really go through the engine properly, and you'll notice, once again, we've done it properly. Didn't last. Let's build on this. Let's go do the very first Battle Royale event at Calder Park. So if you guys were around back then for Keep It Read, we were at the first one. So we went through and did that, and it actually had a terrible noise coming from the engine, sounded like it dropped a lifter. We popped the rock cover to realize that the spray bar on the front of the SR had just snapped off, was somewhere in the head or the sump, wherever it ended up, doesn't matter, and it had killed the cam. So we've taken all the hard facing off the cam, so we packed it up, put it on a trailer, brought it home and thought, can't be that bad. We'll just get some new cams for it. So I believe they were 256s back then, or 246s, and we've gone to 256s. So I thought, big cam, let's do that, that'd be great. Put the cam in it. We've gone to Battle Royale again. So we've gone back to DT layout. I think this is round 3 maybe. We might have missed a round or something. And realized that the oil pressure is now stupid low. It's 5 to 7 PSI of oil pressure. And on the 3rd lap or 5th lap, seems to be a recurring theme with this car, we broke the gearbox. So I broke 3rd gear out of the CD box. After then, we were doing a few more laps in 4th gear and snapped the input shaft. So what I'd done when I did the conversion, there's a little bit of writing right at the bottom of the instructions that say to cut the input shaft, I think it's 1/8 of an inch, and I didn't do it. So it was just bottoming out the input shaft super hard in the crank, and eventually the input shaft just broke. So after the Read event, we've gone and pulled the engine all the way out again, pulled it all the way down to realize that it's had no oil pressure for quite a while, or very, very low oil pressure. So all the bores are ruined, crank's ruined, all the bearings are ruined. Pretty much every surface in the engine that moves was broken. So we took it upon ourselves to redo what is God's engine once again. So we've gone through 4 brand new pistons, new crank, all new bearings, new gaskets, new oil pump gears, all new timing set, new everything. Brand new set of cams. So I thought, you know what? We've gone 246, 256. Let's just go to the bottom of the barrel. Let's get a pair of 270s. That'll just be awesome. So if any of you guys out there at home are running a 3076 and 270s, don't. It's bad. Sounds really good, but doesn't work very good. So we freshened it up and we thought this will be great. So we've gone through, freshened the entire engine, and it was supposed to be good forever. So we missed a round of the National Series and then thought, you know what? It's good experience. Let's go to Sydney. Let's go to the Peanut Track. It was actually a weird weekend of drifting. So we had a drive shaft snap, my first one ever. And this is about the same time where I started YouTube. So if you're around for the old channel, you would have seen the videos. And we did okay. I think we ended up 8th after I missed a gear. I always struggled with the CD box. Just could never quite get it. It was just, I don't know, something about it felt weird. Couldn't quite get gears, but we did finish the season. I missed a gear in the end and I think we got 8th, but started to build confidence with the car and thinking that, you know, this was our first event pretty much ever that we didn't have any dramas with the SR. End the year, so October, December sort of times. Let's go to SA. I've never been to Locktoberfest, so if you look all the way back to the start of this channel, there's actually a video dedicated to us going to Locktoberfest. Pretty much broke everything again, so drive shafts, shifters, handbrakes. The SR didn't break, but we kept having dramas with popping off cooler pipes, but the SR as a whole actually lived okay at that event. So we decided to take the car to round 1 of High Tech. So this is the Front S's 2023. It was all going quite well until I realized I can't actually shift this box properly. So the run up was quite in between with the CD box. So I was having to go 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, enter. That's a whole lot of gear changes in not a whole lot of time. So I was trying to skip gears and the car didn't have enough torque. Remember those giant big cams and giant turbo? I've got like no power band at this point. So I've just got nothing to work with. I'm trying to skip gears, it's not working. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just jam the car in 4th gear and just hang it off the limiter. I know it's been tuned with the limiter set really conservatively. It shouldn't pop shims. Let's just go for it. So just hanging the car off the rev limiter for like 30 seconds straight. As the day goes on, longer and longer, oil pressure gets lower and lower. It's not really something I'm taking notice of, but also, obviously this is going on in the background. We finished up that day 4th. That's the last time I drove the car. We've then brought the car home and thought, let's put adjustable cam gears in it. We'll try and bring the power band back. So before then, we only really had from 6,200 to 7,200 to actually use the car. Before then, it just had nothing. Everyone had told me, put a smaller turbo on it, smaller cams, use your brain. But I thought I was smarter and was obviously wrong. So we've popped the rock cover off and what would you know? It's killed another cam. So we never really found out why the DET had kept killing cams. It always seemed to be intake number 1 and exhaust number 4. Whether the head has a twist, something weird's going on, I have no idea, but it always killed cams, and that ultimately led to the death of the SR sitting behind me. We pulled it apart, the crank's ruined, all the bearings are ruined, the block's already at 87 mil, so it's as big as you can get the block without going to dart and sleeves. The bores are ruined. So ultimately, this is where the SR sits now behind me, and we're not going to put it back in the car. The car is officially dead, and we thought, you know what, let's go through, we'll get some dart and sleeves for it. I went out and I sourced a VE head from South Africa, got that imported, cost me like all the money, got all the bits together to put a VE conversion together, got a brand new crank, and just kind of sat on it for a while because I was like, this is going to be like the 5th or 4th time we're doing it properly. Is this really the best route? So after considering it for a while, I actually thought, you know what, maybe this is a bit stupid. So we've gone through, sold all the VE stuff, the block's still sitting behind me. It's unfortunately not going to go back together because it's too far gone. And then I had a dumb cunt mate decide to sell me an RB, or sell me on the RB idea, and now we're doing that. That leads us into where we're at today. So currently piecing together the 2530. So Series 1 head, we've got the RB30, crank's in good nick. So that's actually all the way right now getting machined. I've bought all the parts internally to make like a really good long block. So I've got all the forged spool gear. So I've got 9.5 compression pistons, brand new I-beam 1000 horsepower rods, every bearing you can think of, all double valve springs, all fancy painted rock covers that I'm gonna have to break because I didn't put baffles in them while I had them out. Everything should be there. It's all going on in the background, so if things are a bit slow, that's also happening, along with the white car sitting up there with some pretty cool number plates that should be hitting streets near you kind of soon. So stick around with the channel. There's going to be an upcoming build. We'll do a video on it, on how it's going when all the bits come back from the machine shop, putting it together. It should be around a 400 kilowatt build. Pretty conservative for something like this, but honestly, we're just looking forward to doing some laps in the 13 again. So thank you very much for watching. Tell your mum to subscribe. I know she's been watching, and we'll catch you on a future episode where we're either using the white car or the orange car to go and do some skids.